Um, Good evening, everybody. So far, we have 52 participants. I think this is our biggest one ever. So that can say two things: that one, everybody's really excited to see Charlie Miller, or that we're a little nervous about what's going on. So this came about because Howie and I were talking a couple of weeks ago, and we're sort of in the same, and I don't want to say panic, but we're concerned, and we want to help y'all get the information as it's coming out. So that's kind of the key phrase, is as it's coming out. The information that we're giving you today is as good as today. Um, we, the Down Syndrome Association of Atlanta and Gigi's Playhouse, recognizes that things are going to be moving pretty fast in this era, this new era that we're in. So we are hoping that we'll be bringing a few of these. So just stay tuned. We are planning on, so tonight we're going to hear from Charlie, who's with the Georgia Council on Developmental Disabilities. But we're also bringing in the National Down Syndrome Congress and National Down Syndrome Society, so we can keep up with what's going on federally. But we will, I would say, at the rate we're going, probably every 2 to 3 weeks, I would certainly be looking out and keep up with us. We are recording tonight, so I hope that's okay with everybody. So it will live on our YouTube channel. And then we will also be sending out information after tonight. So we're going to help y'all get to your legislators. And if there was ever a time to make your voice heard today, starting today is the day. So I want to introduce y'all to my friend Charlie Miller. I've known Charlie for a really long time. He's with the Georgia Council on Developmental Disabilities. And he's down at the Capitol every day during session. So he's seeing it kind of firsthand. And we've had a lot of talks about what we need to hear tonight and what he needs from us. And this isn't us, y'all. This is not me and Howie going down to the Capitol. We need everybody now. And we are a small part of any disability community. So I want to make sure that the individuals that we serve are being heard. So Charlie, I'm going to let you go ahead and get started. And if y'all have questions, he has said that y'all can put them in the chat, and then I will get him to answer some questions. But just give him a minute to get started and to kind of say, listen first, and you'll know when to ask.
Good evening, y'all. Thank you, Cheryl, so much for letting me join
Julia, how do I
in.
edit my name?
If everybody can put their mute on, that would be great.
I promise there'll be time for questions. I'll be happy to help you figure out whatever that issue was. Um, as my dad would like to say, if I don't know the right answer, I'll find someone that does know the right answer and make sure you get the right answer. So good evening, y'all. My name is Charlie Miller. I am the Legislative Advocacy Director at the Georgia Council on Developmental Disabilities. And I really just want to say first, thank you, Cheryl and Denise and Down Syndrome Association. And I got muted on accident. Sorry about
Whoops.
that.
Sorry.
I love technical issues on Zoom, y'all. But like Cheryl said, I am at the Georgia State Capitol every single legislative day. But today we're not going to be really focusing on our state issues, which I'd be more than happy to talk to you about those state issues, but our federal stuff coming on. So, before I kind of dive deep, I wanna give space to, everyone. I think everyone in the disability community, I know personally, as a person with disability, a lot of things are happening really, really fast. And and before we dive in and start talk about what the issues are, I want to make sure everyone is doing their self-care, whatever that may be, taking some time. I know as a dude, I love watching football while I'm taking a very hot bath and drinking some wine. So very odd about, well, not wine, more whiskey, truthfully, and a bourbon. But y'all, please take a breath and make sure you're taking care of yourself, because at the end of the day, we're gonna do everything that we can, but we gotta make sure we're all making sure we each other are okay. So with that, let's dive into the fun stuff. So, uh, I guess starting back a couple weeks ago, uh, we started to get executive orders from the president around a lot of disability stuff. So the first one, starting off with the executive order to freeze federal funds coming down to states. So a lot of folks did not know exactly how that was going to be affecting our community. And truthfully, we were all trying to figure out how it would exactly affect our community. Now we're having a better understanding about where we're going to be sitting on a lot of these things. Thankfully, some federal dollars are still moving around, and things are getting pushed through. But what we're hearing from the federal government is that there's going to be big cuts to our Medicaid system in Georgia, not only Georgia, but throughout the United States. This, and from what we've heard, they're looking for big major changes for Medicaid funding in Georgia and throughout the United States, and this is something that really affects all the disability community, not only in Georgia but throughout the United States, making sure folks understand how vital these programs are for people with disabilities. So I am going to start with sharing my screen, kind of giving us an overview of what Medicaid in Georgia kind of does in the state. So Cheryl, are you able to see my screen?
I can see it.
Okay. So this is our beautiful one pager. I will say it's not fully disability accessibility friendly. There's a lot of things that are on the this fact sheet, mainly because it touches so much of Georgia. So specifically, in Georgia's Medicaid, 18.3% of Georgia's population are covered by Medicaid. So a little under 2 million people with disabilities, pe- people with all types of disabilities are covered by Medicaid. That translates to $10.4 billion in federal Medicaid funding that comes down from our federal folks all the way down to programs in Georgia. So these programs can include now and comp waivers, uh, uh, um, the Katie Beckett waiver, assessments and treatments for for children with autism spectrum disorder, Down syndrome, and all types of different issues in Georgia. So Georgia's Medicaid workforce not only does funding critical funding for medical services, it also helps keeps hospitals open, mental health professionals open, therapists in our community going, mental health professionals, therapies in schools, in programs. All these programs are touched by Medicaid dollars. The Medicaid funding, from what we're hearing, we originally heard that we that there was going to be a budget bill coming out of Congress, I believe a week and a half ago. Apparently there was a meeting down with the president and a bunch of members of Congress, and they have still have not come out with a official uh uh spending package that we're going to be really kind of watching for, that will have those Medicaid cuts. That is meaning that people with disabilities, people in the disability community, are really saying, saying this is a big concern for us, and we need to make sure people with disabilities are thought of throughout the community, are thought of throughout this process. So I, I personally am taking that as a little bit of a good news, truthfully, because that means people in Congress are talking, and those conversations are really being impacted by the disability community in Georgia. So, kind of breaking down Georgia Medicaid, which we've talked to a couple of House Republicans, that were really targeting around these issues. 1 in 10 adults, 19 through 64, two in 5 children, 5 in 7 nursing home residents, and 3 in 10 people with disabilities are all Medicaid beneficiaries. These folks are really in need of disability funding, of making sure programs are staying around. One thing that we're talking with, and kind of giving a really good idea of around these Medicaid impacts. 66% of Georgia's cost is covered by the federal government. So 66% of our multiple billion-dollar budget is covered by Medicaid funds. The issue is if Medicaid receives a cut in Georgia, the, this will mean big losses to access of care. Providers will receive lower payments for services that they may be able to still deliver. A lot of them would not be able to deliver them, still going on. Federal cuts will create a significant budget gap in the state of Georgia. And as we all know, if there is a downfall of state funds, that they will end up having, at the end of the day, having to raise taxes. But y'all, that's a long process to get going. So a lot of people with disabilities are wanting to make sure uh uh the Congress is listening to the disability community. So a lot of people with disabilities have been reaching out to Congress, and specifically on the House side. So as the budget kind of goes through the process, it starts on the House side and then eventually goes to the Senate side. We are most wanting to make sure the biggest impact is to our House side, so our federal House members. Now those House members are differ throughout the community of Georgia. So we want to make sure that we're listening to not only the folks that may be in the very big areas, but also in the suburbs and the rural areas as well. I know I live in close to Beaufort, Georgia. So my federal representative, I reached out to them and made sure that they know that these cuts to the traditional Medicaid are going to be a huge difference in our disability community. One thing that we really want to make sure that people understand it is that Medicaid, a lot of people with disabilities, that's their only way of getting services. A lot of private insurances will not and does not cover some services enough. And that's going to be a really big concern for our community. So I will stop sharing this screen, and I wanted to say, y'all, our disability community is in a crossroads right now. Georgia gets a lot of federal funds from the feds, but those funds really impact a lot of close people in our community. We need folks to rise up and speak about these issues, not only to their federal senators, but also their federal House members in Georgia. So before I go on, I want to stop there and see if there's any questions so far. All right. And
Excuse
now,
me 1 second. So Charlie, you're gonna explain kind of what that means, that you're kind of calling everybody, the 67 people that are on our call. What does that mean? What do you need? So is that gonna happen at the end where you're gonna have the ask of what we need from them? Or does everybody kind of understand where we are? Oh, excuse me. Does anybody have any? So everybody knows that kind of where the money comes from and down and out and where y'all could be affected?
Can you repeat how much money we get from the federal government? Was that $10.4 million?
not million, it's with a B. Bill.
$1 billion. Okay,
Yes.
yeah. Okay, that makes more sense to me. Because I saw that Georgia has a budget surplus of $16 billion. And I didn't know if we get cut by the feds, do we need to go after the governor to try to decrease that gap, like to put in some more Georgia money?
Yeah. So that's a really good question. And the so on the state side, we have a couple options. One, they could do that surplus, but the issue is we only have a limited amount of that surplus. And from what we're kind of going after right now, that surplus will be used up very, very quickly. Now, they would, if again, this is the worst case scenario, if this happens. If that happens, they we all talk about the uh waiver waiting list right now. There will
Mm-hmm.
be a humongous waiting list for services because a lot of key services that get federal funding will be completely eliminated.
Mm-hmm.
So very good question. And I will say the Senate excuse me, the Senate Appropriations chairman actually spoke about this, and he said yes, it would be very in his words, yes, it would be very uncomfortable, but we could do it. In which I want to counter that and say, how long could we really do it? And are we giving quality services that our community desperately needs? So I want to say thank you for that really good question. And so, what we're kind of here tonight talking about and what our opportunities are. None of this is written in stone right now. No cuts have happened as of 8:22 p.m. on Thursday the 6th of February. None of it has happened right now. Right now is the opportunity to reach out to our legislators. That's going to be one of the biggest things that we can do. And specifically on our House side, on our federal House side. And I am actually going to uh share my screen one more time, and I'm also going to put something in the chat. So at my organization at GCDD, we have a very cool group called and this actually excuse me, actually helps people with disabilities advocate to their community on a federal level. So I am putting this into the chat right now. And if y'all want to advocate tonight around this issue, all you have to do is click on that link I just shared in the chat, and I'll make sure Cheryl and Denise and the Down Syndrome Association sends this out along with our one pager. It will direct you straight to this organization, website. I apologize, and all you have to do is type in your name, last name, your address, your full address, and your email address, and it will auto populate this message, which I highly recommend you reading through this. And then also, if you want to add your own story of what these cuts will do. I don't know who's drawing on the screen, but it is not me. Uh, um, but 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 these cuts and using a personal story makes such a big difference for our community, because it allows the federal legislators to understand it's not just the numbers. It's not just, 100,000 people or a little under 2 million people. It's people with real lives and real issues. And that's something that we really need to make sure that Congress knows, that these are the issues in our community. And I'll also say, uh, uh, thank you, Lindsay. I saw that in the chat. Thank you so much. But I'll also say one thing that I want to make sure y'all understand: we're not doing this all alone, y'all. There was a national call-in day today of 96 different advocacy organizations calling in and making sure the phone lines get tied up with folks really advocating around this issue. And so everyone is really working together. Folks are coming together. I have seen so many big organizations create coalitions overnight to advocate around this issue. So we're all in this together. And one thing I'll also say, not only would I encourage y'all to send the email, do a phone call, but I would also recommend doing a office visit. So we'll send this information out. In the
What does an
follow-up.
office visit mean, Charlie?
That's exactly what I'm getting about to go over. So an in-office visit is really making sure. So yes, your federal representative goes to the United States Capitol, but whoever represents you has a district office. That district office has staffers who are supposed to, one, know that community, so that area, but also is supposed to make sure the congressperson understands what issues are mattering to them, to that area. So every single area has a congressional district. I would recommend y'all starting to make a office of visits with them. A lot of these office visits are not with the the federal representative themselves, and that's okay. A lot of them are with staffers, but those staffers' whole job, their whole paycheck, is to make sure your voice is heard in the federal government. So I'll also encourage y'all to do that. And I'll send we'll send up a follow-up email about how to make an office visit and what exactly we need to do step by step. And I was also telling Cheryl and Denise before everyone got onto this call. I have already voluntold them that if y'all reach out to Cheryl or Denise or anyone at Down Syndrome Association and y'all want to do a visit, They will go with y'all. They will help prepare y'all. They will play the Rocky soundtrack while y'all are walking into the office to make sure you are prepared to advocate with this community. So I want to stop there. Cheryl, I don't know if there's any questions in the chat.
I don't see any in the chat, but what I just want to emphasize is yes, we will go down. I'm down at the Capitol quite a bit. Georgia Council on Developabilities also has some advocacy days, one of which is coming up next week. And Charlie, you want to tell them a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So next week, I call them the legendary GCDD's legendary advocacy days because I used to go to them as a kid. Uh, my mama used to take me and my other brother who also had a disability to the Capitol and advocating around these issues. Now it's like a full circle because now I run these advocacy days and I get other kids to come up to the Capitol and learn how to use their voices in the community. So next week we have our advocacy day around the waiver programs in Georgia. So the now and comp waiver. Currently in Georgia, there is okay, Brenda, I see your point in the chat. Can me and you stay on after this call so I can try to figure out what the issue is, Brenda? I would appreciate that. And Cheryl, I apologize. But
No,
yeah,
other people made it through.
thank goodness. But we are really making so next week at the Capitol on Wednesday, we're having disability advocates come out to the Capitol to talk with legislators about about the state funding for state issues. So the state funding around the now and comp waiver in Georgia. And what this really means is if the state puts in money to the now and comp waivers, they will receive a federal match to help cover more waivers. So the more money that is put into the state to the state budget around these waivers, the more money that will be able to help support people with disabilities. Currently, there is and this is fresh from DBHDD's numbers, 7,900 people with disabilities waiting for services in Georgia. These people are literally being and Cheryl knows this firsthand. Sadly, these people are being left in ERs and emergency rooms in nursing homes, and we have the opportunity to help advocate for the disability community. One thing, and I love seeing all these messages that say sent. I love that. That makes me so excited. It actually works. Oh goodness. But one thing that I'll also say, and then I'll be quiet. So if there's any questions, we can answer them. But one quote that I really live by is a lot of people. So, as a person with disability, I have cerebral palsy and I love it. But a lot of people in my life poured into me. Cheryl poured into me. My mom and dad poured into me. Uh, um, um, Heck, even as an adult, uh, Debbie has, Howie has, a lot of people on this call have poured into me. Folks, now we have the opportunity to pour into others and make sure others are prepared to advocate with us. So I want to stop there and see if there's any questions or comments or anything that we can talk about still.
Howie, you want to tell them what you're doing next week?
Yeah, so every year our adult program goes down to the Capitol for one of the advocacy days. We're going next Wednesday. It's at the Capitol. We'll go meet at the GCDD office. We'll have a preview of like, what are we going to go advocate for? We'll go to what they call the ropes. I will bring probably 20 adults with Down syndrome and their parents. We'll be not just the only people there, there'll be people with autism, cerebral palsy, a whole group of people, and we'll be advocating for our rights. And we will get one-on-one conversations at the ropes with our representatives. And the most important thing I tell all our young adults and their parents is, even though we're not always treated equally, we have the same amount of votes. And so when our adults with Down syndrome, the first thing they say is they introduce themselves and they say, "I vote," because it's very important that they hear that their votes are just as important and just as equal as everybody else's vote. So we're not the only group that does it, and this isn't the only Wednesday, but it is really, really important that we get in front of people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? So as I mentioned earlier, this information's coming at us as hard and fast as I've ever seen it. I talked to Debbie Dobbs the other day about the Department of Education. We're talking about and what that means to our community. Nobody has any answers. Nobody has any real answers about this yet. But what we're trying to do, this is not partisan. This will affect all of you, and your kids um, and your adults. So it needs to be, they need to hear from the people that it's affecting. I can go down, Howie can go down, but it's not as impactful as when y'all go down and tell those personal stories. The letter that we're going to send you out, that hopefully y'all will be able to send out to people. I always tell everybody to sort of do it in the beginning of the paragraph, that tell just a little bit about your story and how it will impact your life if your child doesn't have a waiver, if your child doesn't, and not just an outcome, but remember, we're talking about Katie Beckett. I mean, all of that's kind of been brought to the forefront. So how will it affect your family if you don't have Katie Beckett anymore? How will it affect your family if y'all just can't get waivers? They need to hear your stories. I do my best, and so does Howie, to advocate for y'all, but this is the time that they need to hear from y'all. They need to hear from the parents. We need to hear from husbands and wives and grandparents and whoever else you can get down there. But if we don't show up down at the Capitol, I can assure you that the senators and the representatives go, well, it must not be that big a deal. We do have a friend in Scott Hilton. He certainly kept us up. But this is changing on a daily basis. So we need y'all to kind of keep up. If y'all have questions, you can certainly reach out to Howie or I. I think all of our boards are pretty much up to speed with what's going on. But call the people in the community that we can get to. And keep up. I would also tell y'all to get on GCDD's. They have a blast out, a newsletter, is it every week, Charlie?
Mhm.
So look at that. NDSC and NDSS both have newsletters that I've signed up for, so we can keep up with what's going on federally. So just so you know, the topics that we're going to be discussing in calls like this, again, we're bringing in the national organizations to talk about NDSC and NDSS to talk about what's happening federally. We're also going to be bringing in global to talk about what research is going to be affected, because that could potentially happen. We're going to be bringing in somebody to talk about what DOE, if that goes away, what that means. But as I was talking to my friend Debbie Dobbs, we don't know, and we're trying to wait and hold off till we have better answers. But this is a really big deal, and the fact that we already have an advocacy day planned for next week. I want to make sure that people are getting out there. And the other issue that we're going to be discussing is immigration and what's happening with some of our families and how to stay ahead of that. So everything that's kind of happening right now, we're keeping a close eye on. I'm staying as connected to the professionals that we can. But if y'all have any questions or y'all want to get involved or y'all want to make those office visits, I'm very happy to go down to the Capitol with y'all anytime.
And not only the Capitol, Cheryl, but
Where
also,
else am I going? Oh, into the offices.
yeah, all y'all. I was telling my wife the other day, if this was just session, we could all handle this stuff. If it was federal stuff outside of session, we it would be wild, but we can figure it out. But this is session and federal stuff all happen at the same time.
Yep.
So there's many uh I hate the phrase too many chefs in the kitchen because there ain't no way that there's too many people advocating around this issue. We all need to be in the kitchen. We all need to be figuring out how we can work together on these issues.
Charlie, do you want to get, because really the session is still going on, just really quickly, can you tell us what GCDD's priorities are for this year?
Oh my, yes, I'll be happy to. So, like I said, I am very glad I already this is so off topic, but I'm so glad in my brain of thinking about all these different issues, I remembered next week is Valentine's Day. So y'all don't forget next week is Valentine's Day. Please do not forget that. My wife would kill me if I forgot that. But what I was going to say, the three advocacy priorities this year, we have employment for people with disabilities. So we actually had a bill last year around ending 14C in Georgia. So a 14C certificate allows organizations to pay people with disabilities below minimum wage. We have seen it sadly as low as 22 cents an hour for people with disabilities. And it's terribly ironic, and I apologize if I'm not using ironic the right word, but it's not like a Coca-Cola organization or Delta or even Publix that we see a lot of people with disabilities get hired at. It's community rehab providers. So people that are supposed to be helping people with disabilities go to work are actually not doing that, and they're helping keep them down in low poverty wages. So that's one of our issues that we had last year. It came back this year. We actually have a bill from Senator Billy Hickman out of Statesboro, who's a Republican that is carrying that bill. This is a bipartisan issue. The only people that we've come into issues are two groups of people. One group is families that want to know how, if we get a person with disability onto state minimum wage, how do we make sure they don't lose benefits? In which there's some really good opportunities that say you can go to work and you won't lose benefits, and here's how you do it. And then the other folks that are working, trying to work against us, are the people that actually do this 14C, hold the certificates and doing these what are called shelter workshops. One of the organizations, I'll get off this tangent, but I've been on this tangent for a while today. One of the organizations that does it, she makes over $200,000 a year, and she and her business brings in over $1 million a year, and they still can't pay people with disabilities minimum wage. This is wild, y'all. The second issue that we have in Georgia it is the Medicaid funding issue from the state level. So the now and comp waiver in Georgia. Like I said, there's over 7,000 people, actually at 7,900 people with disabilities that are currently not getting services, and a lot of them are going into crisis. And then our third bill is a bill that was ran last year as well by State Senator Sally Harrell. And she had a bill called the Intellectual and Developmental Disability coalition, I think it was called.
Yeah.
Commission.
Coalition.
Commission. It was one of those words, commission or coalition, but commission, and that was to be looking at the disability community as a whole, and to bring folks like vocational rehab, DBHDD, Department of Education all together, and to talk about the whole of the disability community and how we get all these organizations together. One thing that we're really good at in the disability community is siloing ourselves, and like, say, people with physical disabilities only hang out with people with physical disabilities, or Down syndrome only with Down syndrome, or autism with autism. We're wanting to break down those barriers and make sure we're all talking as a community together. So those are our three priorities. Our next advocacy day is next Wednesday, and we would love to have anyone that would like to be there to be there.
So Charlie, I know the focus is on the now comp waiver, but if they have Katie Beckett, shouldn't they be down there too?
Yes. Yes.
And bring your babies, and your adults. I just saw somebody say that they had a baby. I'll hold the baby while y'all go to the ropes.
Yes. Yes. Cheryl's really good at holding babies because she tried to hold my baby. Well, yeah, my son, but he was not having it that moment. I think he would rather be with his mama than me or Cheryl. So,
Tried.
but she's pretty good at babies.
I do want to say also, I saw an email from Lindsay. We are taking a coach bus to the Capitol from Oak Grove United Methodist Church next week from 9:30 to 1:30. It'll pick us up at the church. It'll take us right to the steps of the Capitol. We'll all go in together and it'll bring us back. Lindsay, you can put your info in the chat if you would, because we do have room on the bus. It's about a 50 passenger bus, and I think right now we have about 30 people going on it. So Lindsay can help. If you want to all ride together, you can park at the church, meet us there, and ride together, so you don't have to worry about being down there by yourself.
And we have 2 bus stops, one in Dunwoody and one in the Oak Grove. So depending where everyone is.
Thank you. That was
Yeah.
And Lindsay, if you want to come pick me up in Buford, I can send you my address.
Probably where the bus is starting.
I know.
So any
Probably.
other questions or concerns, or have we answered your questions for tonight? I mean, truth be told, we answered your questions for today. Tomorrow, these days, every day I wake up, there's another little bit of a panic. So we're gonna try to keep everybody sort of grounded, and we just need to show up. It's as simple as that. You just need to show up, and you need to tell your stories about why Katie Beckett's important to you, why the now comp waiver is important to you, and what these services mean. It's they need to hear, everybody needs to hear from. And if y'all have contacts around the state, um, not that we're doing that that particular, or we don't do that necessarily from DSAA, but I've certainly talked to some of our outlying areas like Valdosta and Savannah, trying to get people, because it's also really important that they don't just hear from the people in Atlanta. They want to hear from South Georgia, and make sure that you're telling your friends in South Georgia and East and West that they need to be down at the Capitol with us.
Hey, Charlie, thanks for doing this tonight. Can you please send out the link to sign up for the GCDD newsletter? I know I get some stuff from GCDD, but I don't think a regular newsletter. It'd be great to see that. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll send all the information I have to Cheryl, and she has everybody's email addresses, and she'll make sure to get it out to everybody. Thank you for having
Denise,
me
do you
on
have
there,
something?
honestly.
Yes, I just wanted to reiterate what Charlie said at the beginning. Please do self-care. Learn to rest, not to quit, and just keep working and email and call. There's an app, and there's also a website called 5calls disabilityhealth.org and has, if you enter your zip code, it gives you your representatives and it gives you their phone number. You just have to click and it actually puts a spot where you can say, I did call them or I messaged them or I didn't make contact with anybody. And it's just an easy way to streamline the process. So it's not overwhelming because I know that you all are parents of kids with disabilities and we don't need to add any of this. So please learn to rest and not to quit. And we'll keep sending you information on how to streamline the process. That's all I got.
So Charlie, you might want to answer this. Any timeline for the possible cuts? And I would say that last week we thought they were being cut, then this week they're not, and next week, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a new day every day.
Yeah, so me and you were on the same brain wavelength. We saw that at the same time. So just as kind of like how we got to this point, truthfully, y'all. So at the ending of January, we got a kind of like a SOS from our federal advocates about they heard, and the Republican the folks that are in charge, they told that that they were going to have a budget bill produced at the beginning of February, and then by mid-February it was going to be what they call marked up, in which that means that all the legislators are going to be all the House side is going to be going through it, and then by the end of February it was going to be going to the Senate side. Again, that has changed. That has changed because advocates got word and they started making phone calls, they started emailing, they started letter writing campaigns, they started banging on doors to make sure folks, the federal government understood how these changes would affect our community. So talking as February 6th at 8:50 at night right now, we have been told that a budget bill is coming. We don't understand. No one knows when exactly it will be dropping. We have an idea that it will be dropping within the next 2 weeks. So all this, I know we all sound like we're, running around like chickens with their heads cut off, but y'all, we are getting really close to really seeing some really big changes that will be detrimental to the disability community. That being said, I think we have a good opportunity to advocate around these issues and making sure our federal legislators understand how bad these cuts will be in our community. So all that to say is we don't know exactly the timing or the day or the minute yet. But as soon as we get the budget, we'll make sure to reach out to everybody and make sure folks understand what are the real cuts and what was just talk. And really kind of breaking that down. And then once we get the budget, because the idea right now is, especially in Georgia, we focus on our House members. We have 2 federal Senate members who are both from the opposite party, and they have been strong disability advocates in the past. And we have a feeling that they will advocate with us on these issues. Now, that being said, I want to say we have strong disability advocates on the other side of the party, of the Republican Party, as well. So it's not just one party or the other. Our community is spread throughout both parties. So we have a good opportunity to really make sure that this is a bipartisan effort to make sure the disability community is kept whole.
That's really the key for tonight, is that we all have to work together. We have to show them that our community has value. And so anything that we can do to help y'all. If y'all don't have any other questions, Charlie, we are very appreciative that you came. We might ask you to come back as this session goes on. How late is the session this year?
So this legislative session will actually end April 5th. So I'll be head down, going after it, literally listening to Eminem on the car ride up to the Capitol, and then listening to Adele on the car ride home. So y'all can catch me at any time.
So, really, Charlie, thank you. It's good that we have a connection in high places. Howie, do you want to say anything? Is there anything that's coming up at the Playhouse that you want to make sure people know about?
Always programming. Everyone is always welcome. As you guys know, everything is free of charge. We have programs for littles all the way up to adults. But Charlie, again, I want to echo our thanks, because we know you do the work day to day, and I've known you for a long time, and you're really appreciated in our community. So thank you again for doing this and really kind of rallying us, because we really need it. So thank you.
Howie, I just want to say to y'all, and I know I don't have Down syndrome myself, but I want to say y'all are a part of the disability community, and 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 this community is my community. Like I know I've spoken about briefly spoke about my brother, but at the beginning of this call, but my brother had the same disability I had, but not as many opportunities as I had, and sadly passed away when he was younger. I always think in my community, I want to help the next generation of my brother, of the disability community, of my community that I care about. So y'all can email me, call me, text me. So I used to say you can send me love letters, but I think my wife may come hunt y'all down if you do that. But if there's anything I can do, Cheryl has me on speed dial. So if there's anything I can do, I would love to come back.
I think that this is going to be one of those sessions that we will definitely do that. I just want to tell y'all about a couple of things from DSAA that are coming up. Y'all will see very shortly. We are going to have, we're selling socks this year. We're really excited about that opportunity. That's our big fundraiser this year, or not bigger than Buddy Walk, but it's another fundraiser this year. And the other thing, we will have so far, I think 12 parties around 321. But I would love to see y'all down at the Capitol. We are going to be working with Scott Hilton again. So I hope to see everybody back down at the Capitol. And while we're just getting a resolution that day, it's really important that we show up and show how strong our community is. So that'll actually be on 321. And Scott Hilton buys us breakfast. So we always like that. And then was her son. I think that was it. So just if y'all have any questions, or y'all need help, please feel free to reach out. Keep an eye out. I'm hoping that all of y'all are on our newsletter. We certainly send and pay attention to what Howie's sending out, because this is going to go fast, and we're going to want you on these calls. But otherwise, I'm going to tell y'all good night, and I hope y'all get a little bit of quiet time tonight. And like everybody has said, it's really important for self-care right now. I know that I'm feeling it, and so I'm assuming that everybody else is. So y'all take care, and we will see y'all at the next meeting.
Thank you.